Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka GLauren33. I'm back with another video here on the channel for you tonight, and we're talking Avengers Endgame. And before we get into anything, you guys know I have to give you a spoiler warning. This video will contain spoilers for Avengers Endgame, so if you guys don't want to be spoiled, click off the video right now. But without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. So today we're going to be discussing mainly the Avengers Endgame timeline and the multiverse, alright? Because Avengers Endgame, for some people, it could be confusing. It's not as confusing as some other time travel movies we've seen throughout history. You know, Endgame, you know, if you don't keep track with everything going on, you could get a little, mixed up with some of the events happening. But for the most part, what happens in Endgame with the time travel stuff makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to clear up most of that in this video. And also, what happens with the Endgame timeline stuff could set up a lot of stuff in the future for the MCU. Alright, so without wasting any more time, let's get into this. So the Russo brothers, the directors of Endgame, they were doing interviews with some members of the Chinese media. This was from a Chinese website that was translated by a Reddit user. And basically, the Russos were asked, when asked if Cap's final trip to the past affected the timeline of the series, the Russos explained that his life with Peggy was part of an alternate reality that left the franchise canon unaffected. So here's the quote. And I quote, "To me, Captain America's actions in the end wasn't the fact he wanted to change anything. It's more like he has made a choice. He chose to go back to the past and live with the one he loved for the rest of his life. The time travel in this movie created an alternate reality. He lived a completely different life in that world. We don't know how exactly his life turned out, but I like to believe he still helped many others when they were needed in that world. Yes, there were two Captain Americas in that reality. It's just like what Hulk said. What happened in the past has already happened. If you go back to the past, you simply create a new reality. The characters in this movie created a new timeline when they went back to the past, but it had no effect to the Prime Universe. What happened in the past 22 movies was still canon." So basically, yes, Captain America at the end of the movie, when he goes back in time to return the Infinity Stones, alright, he says he was successful in doing that. He says that to Sam when we see old Cap at the end of the film. But when Cap puts the Infinity Stones back in their proper place, we don't know, how if he interacted with Red Skull. We don't know if him bringing the Soul Stone back to Vormir brought Black Widow. We don't know none of that. All right. What we do know is that Captain America, after putting the Infinity Stones back, he went back even further in time and went and married Peggy. Alright? And in that timeline, in that new timeline that he created by going back to marry Peggy, there's two Captain Americas. There's one Captain America that's frozen in ice, and then there's the other Captain America that marries Peggy that's come from the future. We don't know if Captain America and Peggy had children. We don't know, if Steve Rogers revealed himself as being from the future. We don't know none of that. All we know is Captain America made a new timeline and he went back and married Peggy. That's all we know. Alright, but it's also explained how we see old Cap at the end of Endgame. Alright, so Captain America, the old Captain America, the old Steve Rogers showing up at the end of the movie, it's not a time loop at all. Remember that scene in the movie with the Ancient One and Hulk talking in New Year 2012. You can't change the future by simply going back to the past, but it's possible to create a different alternate future. It's not the butterfly effect. Every decision you've made in the past could potentially create a new timeline. For example, when we see the old Captain America at the end of Endgame, the old Captain America that you see at the end of Endgame when he passes the shield to Sam, that's the Cap. That's the Steve we all know and love. He went back in time. He made a new timeline by marrying Peggy. He lived his life in that timeline. We don't know about if he had children. We don't know none of that. But he lived his life with Peggy. And when he got really old, we don't know how old Captain America is at the end of Endgame, but we know that he's really old. probably 80s or 90s, somewhere around that. And when he gets really old, he finally decides to go back into the main MCU timeline, and that's when he gives the shield to Sam. So when he grew really old in that new timeline he created, he jumped back. He time traveled back into the main MCU timeline to give the shield to Falcon. All right, the two other new timelines that were probably created in this movie, other than the one that Captain America created, were the one where Loki escapes the Avengers. If you guys remember when Tony and Ant-Man are trying to get the Tesseract in the 2012 timeline, we see that Loki picks up the Tesseract and he's able to escape, captive from the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D., etc., etc. So most likely, a lot of us believe is going to happen is that new timeline that's created where Loki escapes the Avengers. That's probably where Loki's Disney Plus streaming TV show is going to take place, because the Loki in the MCU timeline is already dead and he's not returning, which makes sense. The third alternate time that was created was the one where Thanos and Nebula, all of them. Remember, the 2014 timeline where Thanos and Nebula, they come to the main MCU timeline that takes place in 2023. Remember, Avengers Endgame takes place around 2023. And we see the past version, the 2014 version of Thanos. He comes into the MCU timeline to try to steal the stones from the Avengers. Alright, remember, Iron Man, Tony Stark, sacrifices himself by wiping out all of Thanos' army. So now there's a new timeline created where Thanos, Nebula, and them are all not there no more. So that means that Infinity War never happens in that third timeline. Thanos never collects the Infinity Stones, etc., etc. So basically, in that third timeline, mostly everything happened. Almost everything that happens in the MCU takes place in that third timeline up to about Infinity War. All right. So just to make this all clear, as we reach the end of this video, 3 timelines were created. One where Captain America goes back in time and marries Peggy and lives his life as an old man, and then he eventually passes the shield to Sam, wrapping up his story. 2, the timeline where Thanos and his army are dead. That new 2014 timeline where there's no Thanos. Alright, so that means Infinity War never happens. And 3, the third timeline where Loki escapes and takes the Tesseract. We don't know what happens, what specific events happen in those timelines. All we know is that at least 3 new timelines were created in result of Endgame. And that can set up a lot. Alright? If they want in the future, we know that Tony Stark, unfortunately, he dies in Endgame, ending Iron Man's story. We know Captain America's story is done. We know that Black Widow's story is done for now, because we still have the Black Widow movie. I still think there's a chance she might be brought back. What we do know is that in the future, if they ever want to bring back those characters, all they simply have to do is go to one of these other timelines and just bring Tony Stark or bring Captain America into the main MCU timeline. I could definitely see them doing that maybe 10 years down the road if they want to do like a big tribute and have like the old Avengers return, even though it's unlikely, and so that would be years and years down the line. They have a way to do that pretty easily, even though Iron Man's dead now in the MCU timeline and Captain America, his story is wrapped up, and etc., etc., etc. Alright, also, we know that now that Disney has acquired Fox, now there's a way that they can easily bring in, the X-Men and Deadpool and all those other characters now that they've had access to. Remember, Infinity War and Endgame was filmed in 2017, but even at that time, Kevin Feige and the rest of the people at Marvel Studios already knew that eventually Disney was going to get those characters by acquiring Fox. So down the line, when they're ready to eventually bring in those characters from the Fox deal, there's a way they can easily incorporate them into the MCU storyline just by using the timeline stuff. Alright, I hope that all makes a lot of sense to you. Alright, if it doesn't, make sure to just go back, watch the video over again. Just listen carefully to what I said, because honestly, the timeline stuff makes a lot of sense when you think about it and look at it in depth. Alright, the way all this timeline stuff, it makes a lot of sense. It sets up some of the Disney Plus streaming shows we're gonna see for some of these characters. It gives a way for Marvel to bring in new characters from the Fox deal. It also gives Marvel Studios a way, if they one day want to bring RDJ back as Tony Stark, if they want to bring Chris Evans back as Captain America, if they want to do that one day, there's ways that they can do it without messing up what they've already done with the main MCU story. Alright, other than that, guys, that's about all I got for you guys today. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'll have much more, way more on the MCU and Avengers Endgame as we keep going throughout the days. I hope you guys are enjoying the content I'm pushing out. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about all this. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day, guys. Peace.